artificial intelligence has taken over social media. And it's possible that you've been one of the millions of people who have been deceived. Today, I will show you what has been happening and how this trend has been on the rise, along with the risks and potential benefits it may involve. We'll start by talking about the woman you see in the thumbnail of this video, who, by the way, is not a real person, but many believe she is. Her name is Aitana Lopez, an influencer from Barcelona, who has over 300,000 followers and declares herself as a passionate gamer and fitness lover. And if you're wondering, yes, she also offers exclusive content for adults. Aitana is not just an influencer who has gained great popularity recently, which has allowed her to earn over $10,000 a month, but surprisingly for many, as I mentioned earlier, Aitana Lopez does not exist. That's right, the people behind this profile are part of the agency The Clueless. And contrary to what you might think, no, they haven't stolen photos from another person. All the images you are seeing were created with artificial intelligence, as impressive as it may seem. And despite her profile indicating that she's created with AI, few people have noticed. Just read some of the comments on her posts. In fact, her profile is so human-like that it's hard to realize it's not real, as she shares daily stories of her everyday routine, and everything seems authentic. Additionally, she has that special charm that makes people attracted to her way of writing. But The Clueless also created Maya Lima, another fictional influencer who has a considerable number of followers on Instagram, although she doesn't reach the same popularity as Aitana. This agency claims to work to help brands create artificial intelligence models that adapt to their needs. Therefore, the thousands of brands that collaborate with influencers would no longer have to analyze which influencer aligns with their brand values and marketing objectives. Instead, they could hire agencies like these and collaborate with complete control over the AI models. But perhaps you're wondering how they created these virtual influencers. The truth is, I would be lying if I assured you that The Clueless used a particular technology, because nowadays there are many options available, some with better results than others. You'll notice this when I talk about other influencers who have collaborated with brands that you surely know. Most of these influencers have been created using generative artificial intelligence. This means they were developed using technology that generates images when given certain written instructions. You've probably heard of one of the generative artificial intelligences, DALL-E from OpenAI. But this is not the only one, nor is it necessarily the best. Nowadays, there are others like Midjourney and Stable Diffusion, each with its advantages, disadvantages, and certainly complexities. This technology is accessible to everyone today. Some options are free, but with limitations, while others are paid. Although it's very likely that as technology advances, everything will become even simpler, and brands can easily create their own influencers, turning them into a permanent representation of their brands, similar to what the magazine Luiza from Brazil did over a decade ago. Yes, because Aitana's case represents a novelty in terms of the level of realism and the confusion between the real and the virtual. However, Luiza magazine introduced Ludo Magalu in 2009 through YouTube, a Brazilian influencer in the third dimension who currently has over 2.8 million subscribers on YouTube and almost 7 million followers on Instagram. This fictional influencer has become a symbol of the magazine, being its main figure, and we could say the voice of the brand, appearing on the website, the magazine, and even doing product reviews on YouTube. But there's a significant difference between Ludo Magalu and Aitana Lopez, and that's the realism of each of these influencers and the technology they were created with. But before we move on to other models created with artificial intelligence that are extremely realistic, we have to talk about an influencer who is clearly not real but looks more alive than any other. And I'm talking about an influencer who has personality, her own YouTube vlog, and with her nearly 3 million followers on Instagram, she has collaborated with brands like Calvin Klein and BMW, although she has not been immune to controversies. I'm referring to Lil Miquela, a 19-year-old influencer who made her appearance in 2016. And it wasn't until 2018 that the agency Brood acknowledged being the creator of this virtual model created with CGI. In that same year, Miquela appeared on the cover of Highsnobiety, and in February 2018, the character collaborated with Prada during Milan Fashion Week. In May, she participated in a collaboration with Calvin Klein, where she was seen with supermodel Bella Hadid. where they shared a kiss, which brought one of her first controversies. The internet quickly exploded, and the brand was accused of queerbaiting, which is when a plot suggests that two people of the same sex may be attracted to each other, but only raises doubts. Calvin Klein defended itself by stating that the concept of the campaign is to promote freedom of expression for a wide range of identities, including the entire spectrum of genders and sexual identities. But others believe that using a heterosexual model and another that doesn't even exist is nothing more than a marketing ploy. At first, I mentioned that over time and with new technological advances, brands would not only collaborate with virtual influencers like Michaela, Shudu Graham, and Emma Graham, whom we will talk about later, but they could also create their own influencers with artificial intelligence. This would represent an advantage not only in terms of costs, but would also allow them to avoid working with real influencers who occasionally find themselves in controversies that damage the brand's image. A clear example is the case of Ruby Frank, who created content about motherhood and portrayed herself on social media as the perfect mother. However, in 2023, she was sentenced to 30 years in prison for torturing her children in order to get them to participate in her videos. It's evident that no brand wants to be associated with this type of influencer. One might think that with virtual influencers, these kinds of controversies end, but Lil Miquela's case with Calvin Klein is just the least of the controversies this influencer has been involved in. The worst happened in 2019, when Michaela commented in her vlog that she had been abused by a taxi driver, which quickly caused a stir on social media. Clearly, the recording was quickly deleted.
Like taking manspreading to a whole new extreme. I smiled and nodded, trying to brush it off. I turned the other way and looked out the window. Then, sure enough, I just feel this guy's cold, meaty hand touch my leg, as if he was confirming I'm real. His hand literally lingers there, rubbing my skin. I, of course, was like, curb your enthusiasm, and asked him to stop. And he took his sweet-ass time removing his hand, kind of like he was threatening me. Like he wanted to make sure that I knew that he knew I wasn't human. And then, right when I thought his hand was about to be gone, he pinched me. At this point, I kind of raised my voice, being like, what the f***, stop it. And the Lyft driver was just like pretending it wasn't happening. This creepy ass man, meanwhile, starts laughing and says, what about down there? So I'm like, please pull over now and let me out of this car. And the driver did, luckily. But at this point, we're literally in the middle of the 101 freeway with cars honking at us. And my ass had to get out and walk to the Cahuenga exit 10 minutes away. I'm struggling and no one stops. And I'm feeling so embarrassed and feeling bad about feeling embarrassed for sticking up for myself and weirdly.
But there is always someone who anticipates and publishes what happened on the ex-Twitter, now X. When this went viral, comments certainly didn't wait. There's something unpleasant and wrong about Lil Miquela telling stories of sexual harassment in the form of a CGI character. Victims who come forward anonymously with their own stories aren't taken seriously to begin with. What makes an animated character any better? Sexual harassment assault isn't something to play around with in your fake-ass life. You're not real. But that story is for many, many human beings, including me. Likewise, American singer Kehlani posted, Lil Miquela, you're playing with real stories, real trauma. Sexual assault is a real and terrifying reality, and at this point, you are ignorantly offensive. And as I mentioned before, there will always be a human making decisions behind the false faces of these influencers. Whether it's an agency, a brand, or even a person searching on YouTube, how to create AI models trying to find opportunities to get rich. But despite the controversies, people forget quickly, and brands know this. That's why we can continue to see collaborations like the one that happened in 2023 between Michaela and BMW. And Lil Miquela was perfect for this collaboration because BMW was promoting its fully electric car, the iX2. And in the YouTube video description, there's talk of a new reality which not only refers to electric cars being here to stay, but also these types of influencers, whether we like it or not, will be with us for a long time. Additionally, Aitana Lopez, Maya Lima, and Lil Miquela are just a few of the hundreds that exist on the internet today. Let's remember the case of Shudu Graham, an African supermodel who, spoiler alert, doesn't exist, but who has signed contracts with prestigious brands like Rihanna's Fenty Beauty. The creator of the Shudu Graham model is Cameron James Wilson, a photographer who has been widely criticized for cultural appropriation after creating Shudu Graham using artificial intelligence in 2018. But these types of creations are not only happening in the West, If we go to Japan, an influencer collaborating with luxury brands like Coach is Emma Graham. Those behind her also created her brother, Plastic Boy, also an influencer from Tokyo, who is also the boyfriend of Ria Tokyo, another virtual influencer, although somewhat more sexualized. As you can see, for these virtual influencers to be successful, they need to have two possible components. On the one hand, they must have an attractive personality for people and therefore for brands, as is the case with Lil Miquela and Lou Do Magalu. On the other hand, they can be physically perfect, either hypersexualizing their bodies, as influencers like Alexis Ivy-Edge do, who create sexual content, or have model-like features that we could perfectly see on runways, as in the case of Shudugram or Immigram. You may have had some knowledge about this type of influencers before starting this video, or maybe none at all. However, what's important is to approach this issue with a critical eye, as there are several success stories, as I have pointed out, and there will probably be more in the future. This represents a new reality, whether we like it or not, and the ethical boundaries of this technology can be worrying. The excess of realism in models that do not exist could alter our perception of reality. These virtual influencers often possess traits such as thin and small noses, marked cheekbones, well-shaped lips, and other attributes considered perfect, perpetuating beauty stereotypes. According to Gabriela Arriagada, a researcher at the Chilean National Center for Artificial Intelligence, this could lead to mental health problems in followers. Cases have been reported in Eastern countries where some people develop an emotional dependence on digital avatars, and what we are witnessing today could affect people's self-esteem by distorting reality and generating unattainable expectations. Thousands of people may compare themselves to an artificial model that doesn't experience hormonal changes, digestive processes, or exposure to stress, or other factors that influence how our bodies change on a daily basis. Therefore, some experts argue that it is crucial to address this issue with total transparency from an ethical point of view. It should be clear, at least, that what we see is not real and that it is artificial intelligence. Furthermore, the question arises as to whether brands that collaborate with these digital influencers should be more transparent about their artificial origin, rather than simply including this information in small letters that go unnoticed. In fact, remembering Lil Miquela's collaboration with BMW, the brand never communicates that she's a digital model, even when they could have included it in the small print at the end. And yes, for many, it will be obvious that she is not a real person, but reading comments like, "Finally, an ad that shows both the emotion and the car, and isn't just a bunch of fast-moving shots. The last ones were too brutal and didn't convey anything," makes us say, wow. BMW finally manages to convey more human emotions, and it's not even with a human. Will most people realize that? Will they even question it? Or will we start to see hundreds of ads like these without questioning what's happening? Although it is evident in writing that what they are seeing is not real, the doubt remains whether it will be enough. Let's remember that it's just a matter of looking at some random comments on Aitana Lopez's profile, who clearly states that she is created with AI, to see that the majority of people don't read. If for many people these influencers are real, imagine how it will be for the millions of boys and girls who have early access to social media, who are not yet able to distinguish between reality and the virtual, but will be strongly influenced by the beauty standards that these false models are reinforcing. Despite all the criticisms that can be made about it, I find it a fascinating technology that can be given incredible uses if approached correctly. But we must also be able to have a critical view of what is happening and all the other technology that is yet to come and will continue to surprise us. Tell me in the comments how you think this technology will evolve in the future and if you think there are more benefits or dangers to it.